Thank you to everyone for joining Deepgram and CallTrackingMetrics today for our webinar, The Power of Conversations in Omnichannel. My name is Alexa Della Torre, and I will be leading today's webinar logistics. A few housekeeping items before we get started. All attendees are muted by default. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with the audience afterward, and we'll address any questions that come through the presentation today. Feel free to submit any questions at any point during the webinar by clicking on the Q&A button in your control panel below. Before we move on to the agenda, very briefly, I'd like to share a bit about our speakers. Your speakers from CallTrackingMetrics are Todd Fisher and Jason Smith. Todd Fisher co-founded CallTrackingMetrics in 2012 alongside his wife and has grown it into a top-ranked call management platform serving over 100,000 users around the world. Todd developed the initial software platforms and continues to be driving technical force of the company. Prior to starting CallTrackingMetrics, Todd worked with organizations such as Living Social, Mercedes-Benz, AOL, Revolution, and the Department of Defense. Todd has also made a number of notable technology developments with the Ruby on Rails community. Welcome, Todd.
Hi there, thank you.
Next, we have Jason Smith. He brings more than 20 years of telecommunications experience to CallTrackingMetrics team. In his current role of sales engineer, Jason partners with both the sales and engineering teams to match customers with a customized solution to meet their business needs. Prior to his role at CallTrackingMetrics, Jason worked in telecom sales with a primary focus on enterprise business clients, exploring cloud hosting solutions and global private network solutions. Welcome, Jason.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Next from Deepgram, your speakers are Scott Stevenson and Jacob Bizavati. Scott Stevenson is a dark matter physicist turned deep learning entrepreneur. He earned a PhD in particle physics from the University of Michigan, where his research involved building a lab 2 miles underground to detect dark matter. Scott left his physics research position to co-found Deepgram, where he serves as CEO today. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, everybody.
And last but not least, we have Jacob Bizavati. He's a classical musician turned software engineer with deep interest in aligning teams toward a common purpose. He studied cello, voice, and conducting at Ball State before pursuing a career in technology. Before Deepgram, he worked on software consulting projects for government institutions and Big 3 automakers. Welcome, Jacob.
Hey, great to be with you today.
Before I hand it over to our speakers, here's a brief overview of what we're going to be covering today, starting with the importance of Omnichannel, what's next for Omnichannel and current challenges, examples, our live Q&A, and how to get started. So now, without further ado, I'll hand it off to our speakers. Scott, take it away.
Thanks, Alexa. I'm very excited to be here today to join this amazing lineup of speakers. We've got a lot of great examples that we want to show our audience today. Todd, it would be great to get your take on what you're seeing in the market and what you're hearing from your customers. So what are the reasons that you believe omnichannel is important today, even more than years in the past?
Yeah, I think, thanks. I think that, omnichannel is really about all the different types of ways in which a customer might be reaching out to your business. And of course, they could be reaching out to your business for various reasons, right? We have our support use cases and we have our sales use cases. And, as you think about the different generations of people who are your customers reaching out to you, some are going to prefer to pick up the phone and many are going to prefer to just send a message. And so you want to kind of think about all these different channels when you're engaging with your customers. And so of course you want to also be able to kind of view all of those channels under a similar kind of context, right? So, I'm thinking text is a great medium to understand why and how they're communicating with you, right? And what they're asking about. And so, yeah, so for me and what I'm seeing is customers they want to be able to pick up the phone and call you. They want to be able to write in and message you. And of course, I think this was true 20 years ago and it's true today. They want to be able to get a hold of you right now. And so they still want instant feedback. And they just want to be able to do it under a variety of different medians. yeah, so hopefully that kind of helps. Sort of a workforce automation kind of thing comes into play here as well, right? So as you start thinking about the different kind of technologies in which you could reach your business through, then you also want to think about how do you kind of help to kind of automate that workforce to be effective, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I definitely see, if we want to look into the future of, or let's take a look back at the past as well. But like, I think we're in a really big transition period. There's going to be like a before time and an after time, like before AI automation, before awareness in a lot of ways. Like previously, a contact center had to, or just anybody who was dealing with this influx of data. It was just too much and you didn't have the tools to deal with it. And now like the tools are being built, but also like automation with AI is actually being built as well. And, 10 years from now, we'll look back and think like, man, we were in the Stone Ages before, and it's just going to drastically improve. And in the many areas that you talked about as well. And I think one of the biggest holes has been voice, because it's kind of the most like it's real time. If you can't solve it right now, that's a problem. Also, it's a weird form of data. You have to, previously you used to have a machinery installed in your basement at a large enterprise, these PBX systems, and then there's a switch to doing voice over IP, and then now you can use APIs to do this, etc. But a lot of the companies still are only coming around to that way of thinking because voice is so difficult. It was kind of put in the corner, but now there are tools to deal with it. There are ways to do automation at scale, and it isn't too hard anymore. And I think this helps address a lot of the problems like employee turnover in contact centers, like get them the training that they need, get them the feedback that they need. In real-time agent assist scenarios, get them the knowledge base article that helps them if you're 2 months into your job and if somebody comes to you with a rare problem, but there is an article in your knowledge base, but
That's
you
right.
don't know, you're going to have to search for it, like that those are going to be problems that are like diminishing over time, and everybody's just going to get more and more effective. And then now it will turn into instead of people calling, like thinking like, oh God, I couldn't solve that problem the other way. I'm going to have to call in and spend an hour and a half on the phone, and like, they're not going to have context, not going to, like I'll probably have to call 3 times, or the call will get dropped and won't work. And, all this stuff, we're not going to have those thoughts anymore. We'll be like, oh, like I'll just call in and get this taken care of real quick, and
That's right.
Yeah. So I think that's a really big deal.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. This kind of concept of memory of who you are too, right? So that there's this sort of like carried over context, right? So maybe, and you can think of the different channels as sort of tying into that, right? So maybe I started out by chatting in with you because I was a little bit like, didn't know who you were. I didn't want to really bother you, so I just chatted in. But then an hour later, after we sort of had a good chat, or a day later, I call in, and all that history of what I talked about can be preserved, so that whoever I end up reaching, right, they're still able to preserve that knowledge of my past history and carry that forward with me, so that future conversation can be that much more meaningful and efficient, I think, right, is the key, right? I love the example of, a call into a support line and my phone drops because I drive under a bridge. I don't drive too much anymore, but when that was happening, right? And then you dread the thought of calling back and being like, oh God, I'm going to get a different person, and oh God, I'm going to have to press how many different buttons while I'm driving again on my phone, right? So it's dangerous and and frustrating, So, but these are all problems that are solvable today. And then just sort of like you're totally right. As we look into the future, like just the accessibility of these solutions becomes so much more achievable, right? As we, as these solutions get more and more sort of integrated into all of the different contact center solutions that are out there. It'll just become that much more fluid, right?
Yeah, you're going to have super powered agents, that are basically wearing an exoskeleton, like,
Right.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Voice was also a challenge, or like there are other things that make voice very challenging, and maybe we can go to the next slide to talk about that a little bit.
I was going to interrupt you. Oh wait,
oh
is
yeah,
that
oh
what makes
no,
it
go
hard?
ahead. Hey, let's
No,
do
no.
it. Yeah, and then we'll.
No, I was just doing that to kind of joke, like that's one of the things that make voice a challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, bargain. Yep, or crosstalk. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, there are other problems with voice here. Like a lot of people may not know this, but speech to text or any voice processing that happens in the background is actually or it used to be really expensive. And partially this is because it was done all on CPUs. Partially it was just because it was using tech that the way I like to think about it is a human could understand it. So you would have a step that tried to remove noise, and then you'd have a step that tried to guess the phonemes that were being spoken. And what I mean by phonemes is like the alphabet of spoken sounds. So like ah, ooh, k, the, z, that type of thing. And you'd have a step that tries to do that. And then from all of that, you'd try to guess what the possible words were. And then you'd try to remove all the different possibilities, link them together and say like, hey, here's the transcript. And this is how transcription was done for like 30 years. But there's a big change in that all of that is being put together into one single model, one single end-to-end deep learning model. And when you do that, you get two benefits. You get all the awareness across those different steps. Now they're all connected rather than being discrete and kind of like a house of cards. But also it's way more efficient, computationally efficient. So you can hardware accelerate it. And, previously, if you wanted to do speech to text, you might be spending like 10 or 20 times the cost compared to the line that you are utilizing in order to have the conversation. So like the VoIP line or whatever it is, it would be like, hey, it cost us a few cents for this call, and now it costs us $1 or $2 or whatever for this call if we turn on speech to text. That's not true anymore because of the hardware acceleration. But also accuracy has come up big time too since deep learning. So this just means that you can have a faster, also there's like the API, the rise of APIs has happened as well, where now you can utilize APIs to have a really fast time to value and take advantage of the accuracy and the cost. It's also just, it's not just in the cloud as well. You can have like on-prem and in the cloud flexibility, hybrid and stuff like that. So the modern solutions are coming out now as well.
Yeah, and just to support what you're saying here, I mean, for us and the solution that we're able to offer to customers, it is so much more accessible now as a result of all these things you're mentioning. It means we can offer such a more rich solution to our customers with lower costs and, like you said, far better accuracy. So some of the nice use cases that we can build on top of this better data is information about what occurred on that call, and was it meaningful? Was there a sale that was made on that call? Was there an appointment that was scheduled on that call? We can take some actionable items that are relevant to your business and tell you whether or not these things happened in aggregate across many different calls, or perhaps even remember that something about this customer had occurred in the past and make that quickly available to a customer service agent on a current call.
Mm-hmm. And Todd, I know you and CallTrackingMetrics was sort of a bright light in this industry of actually bringing in the automation using speech to text and other speech processing in order to, modernize this process. Like what has been your experience over the past couple of years?
Well, yeah, I guess one thing not in my bio was in college, I was studying machine learning. So I've always had a passion for this field. And so that was one of the drivers for why I wanted to incorporate it into what we do today. I was like, we have so many call recordings and why can't we get more value out of those recordings, right? Mm-hmm. And so really sort of it's been a journey, one of, trying to take some time on the side where it's and build something. But then also like exploring what our options are available to us. And really, I'd say in the last 3 to 4 years, it has been revolutionary in terms of the transformation that has occurred with respect to the quality of the technology and its ability to transcribe accurately. and also just fast, right? I mean, the fact that we could do real-time transcriptions, it's such a high accuracy now. Even 4 years ago, I don't think we could have imagined it could be done this well. And so it's, yeah, it's just been transformative. I mean, a lot of the products we would have talked about wanting to do 4 years ago or 5 years ago, it's like we can really build now. And yeah, so it's just been transformative.
Yeah,
I don't know if I
I
answered
think
your
it's a
question.
great point. Yeah, to switch over, just show the products and examples a little bit of how this has been utilized in your product, and also to talk a little bit later with Jacob about like how it's done in Deepgram. But yeah, I'll pass it over to Jason now.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, I appreciate you guys letting me talk about some of the newest and most commonly used features that we can provide using Deepgram and speech analytics inside of our omnichannel communication platform. So the first thing I'll talk about is one of the newest capabilities that we've made available, and that's the live transcriptions that Todd mentioned in the call summary with that. So this allows managers or teammates to not only listen live, but to see real-time transcriptions scrolling like a ticker for selected calls in their activity log. Additionally, from this live transcription, we're summarizing a conversation and extracting entities like classification of words, person, quantity, times, things like that, to show a summary of different points during the call. Right now, this is just available as a viewable live scrolling text feed with this summary caption, but this whole transcription is indexed and available right after the call. You can search your activity log for things that have come up in this transcription. And in the near future, we plan to allow you to subscribe to these live feeds and set event-based triggers or reactions that happen in real time while calls are in progress. So we're really excited about the potential uses that this feature opens up for us. In your typical omni-channel call center environment, the most common thing that people ask for is around speech analytics is some kind of alert or flag when a specific speech pattern is detected. So we use a feature called keyword spotting to configure a tag that gets applied or a notification that happens based on the detection of a keyword or phrase spoken by the agent, the caller, or anybody in that conversation. And this has useful applications for flagging calls based on things like a customer asking to speak with a manager, or a customer that calls in and says, cancel my account. And then in your sales application, this can be useful to apply tags based on specific products that are being mentioned during this conversation, or buying indicators from the caller, the prospective customer, or rebuttals that we might hear from a prospect. Managers using this tool can subscribe to an hourly or a daily or weekly report of calls that are most important to them, and any of the CTM reporting dashboards can be filtered, manipulated, or exported around these detected keywords and phrases that are coming up in your conversations. So automating all of this stuff, it's great when CTM can flag a call and maybe notify someone or add a tally for a report later, but it's even better when we can do 2 or 3 more things and even interact with external platforms based on the speech analytics that we're picking up here. So our trigger feature is a powerful workflow automation builder that lets you take several automated actions based on just about any criteria that you can define around an activity, most specifically a phone call. This includes things like, was it a first time or a repeat call, or what was the last recorded URL that this person was looking at before they picked up the phone and called us? What key press option did they interact with on an IVR to self-identify the reason for their call today, or these keywords that are spotted in a phone call? So then the actions that you might take on this criteria being met are things like sending pre-canned texts or emails back to the caller, custom Google Analytics events or Google ad conversions that are reported right into those platforms, or performing a CRM record sync, and even firing a webhook to any other third-party web-based software that contains all of these call details that we're looking for. The story I love to tell around how some of our online retail customers use these automations with the speech analytics is, you can imagine I'm an online retailer for high-end grills or any other item with a high price tag that people don't typically just click through from the ad and check out right away. For these companies, it's especially important to tie the online activity, like the expensive click that they paid for, to the offline activity, the phone call that the person placed after they clicked on that expensive ad to start their shopping for a grill. So this speech analytics and automation with a trigger allows us to take the attribution of that online call to the next level. And you might ask, well, what's the next level? The next level is not only to attribute this offline activity to the source. We know it was from Google Ads or Google Organic. And not only do we get that source down to the campaign or the keyword terms that drove that call, but we can also automatically send a custom sale or conversion to Google Ads, or update a record to sold on your favorite CRM like Salesforce or HubSpot, because we know that the following conditions were met on this phone call. 1, it's a first-time caller. 2, they pressed 1 for sales instead of 2 for support. And then we know that the keyword spoken by the agent was a confirmation code, or the phrase like confirm your order. And then we also have a trigger criteria where we can set it based on our transcription confidence. So not all transcription qualities are created equal. So we want to make sure, before we're going to give credit to a sale, that we want to see our transcription confidence is high or medium or not low. This type of closed loop marketing attribution is really our sweet spot, and not many marketing teams have it in their arsenal, mostly because a lot of the other UCaaS omni-channel communication solutions can't offer it to customers today. So hopefully that gives you an idea of where these speech analytics tools add to the CTM omni-channel value proposition. In addition to this deep, insightful marketing attribution data that we provide, with the call center as a service that agents can use, logging into the platform from just about anywhere that they can access Google Chrome. It also allows them to manage many different lines of customer communication. And then once we layer on this speech analytics, it gives the business the ability to get better context across all of the channels, all of the different departments in the organization, and it makes it extremely easy to analyze and optimize for every one of these omni-channel customer interactions.
All right. So this is Jacob again from Deepgram, and I'd love to talk a little bit about the work that Deepgram has done with CallTrackingMetrics. Some of the things that we were focused on to help them make better sense of their data. And one of the ways that we try to look at this is a good ASR provider that is automatic speech recognition is striving to provide the right information, but to provide speech understanding, so that then a great platform like CallTrackingMetrics can provide business understanding. And that's really the 2 steps, right? Is first, you need to understand what's being said in the audio. What are your customers saying? What are your agents saying? And then, what impact does that make on your business? What products do we need to start up? What products do we need to tweak? Which agents need training? You have a lot of different kinds of insights that can come from that. And one of the big focuses at Deepgram was from really early on, how do we look at lots of data all at once? And Scott, maybe this is something where you want to jump in. I know that like the kind of the origin story of Deepgram was that our co-founders are making these ambient recordings of themselves 24/7. And then when they went to go look at that and say like, well, how do we find, that moment where we had that hilarious joke 2 days ago? Well, it's actually really hard because you have now this massive amount of unstructured data. Scott, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, this is how we got started, generating hundreds of hours, thousands of hours that way. But it really, shone a light on this problem of, wow, audio is dark data, and it's also really difficult to work with. It's not like a text file or a CSV or something like that. In order to visualize the data inside audio, you actually have to listen to it. You can't just like scrub through it and scroll through it. you have to listen to it, or you have to convert it into a format that could be mass searched or something like that. And so that really pushes you toward transcription or other types of understanding, like automatic language detection or speaker recognition and things like that. And we just looked at the existing tools and we're like, wow, the techniques that we were using in physics, end-to-end deep learning in order to analyze signals from particle physics events, this will work really well in voice. It's really strange that people aren't doing it, but like, let's go build that system. And it ends up being really efficient. I mentioned that before, but also accurate from a general model perspective, but also has the ability to learn from your data to get better over time as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things that Deepgram has noticed looking around the ASR market. You know, frankly, there are a lot of vendors out there, and a lot of times what you find is, well, you have some premier cloud vendors where there's a decent model out of the box, but you know, that's it. There's not a collaboration there. There's not really a path to improvement. And then you have some legacy players who are usually a little bit weaker out of the box. But hey, if you want, you can spend 6 to 12 months and $100,000 and get a highly customized model. And you know, Todd, my understanding is, you know, when you're looking at that, it's like, well, hey, where's that middle ground where I can start pretty good, and then let's iterate over the course of 2 weeks or a month and pay a lot less money and get improvements. And that's something you saw with Deepgram.
That's right. That's right. Incremental improvements. You know, yeah.
Right. Right. So, you know, when we started building that system, you know, one of our questions was, okay, how can we move quickly on things like model training? How can we make better sense of the audio in order to serve our customers a lot better? And one of the approaches that we took to that was, how do we be developer first? And so, you know, right now, today, you can go to docs.deepgram.com. We have our API docs there. Todd, I know you're a developer from way back, you know, in your career. And you've worked with a lot of different speech APIs. I think this has been one of the more simple ones to just kind of get fired up with and try out, right?
That's right. Yeah, it was very, very quick for us to you know, adopt your API into our system. Pretty effortless, actually, and it worked surprisingly well first time around. So that was you know, it made adopting your service very easy for us, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like a lot of other speech APIs out there, you know, right now, when you call it, you'll get structured data back about the audio. And today that includes a lot of information that can help lead to speech understanding. You know, when you're getting confidences on words, you know, when you're just tagging speakers, that sort of thing. Deepgram can also just search the audio itself, you know, without having to search the text output. All these things become valuable. And then, you know, where Deepgram's heading in the future is, well, how do we even understand more from the audio itself? You know, there's, you know, sentiment solutions out there, but usually they depend on a lot of text context. And what you miss in the text context is the difference between one of your customers saying, yeah, that's fine, and that's fine, right? That's a really big difference. And once you convert to text, like that's a lossy conversion. All of a sudden, that nuance in the vocal tone is gone. And so that's something that Deepgram, as sort of an originally audio obsessed company, is really striving to provide for the speech understanding world. So Alexa, we can move on to the next slide. You know, one of the ways that we've tried to do that is offering this diarization feature that is, first of all, really fast, really performant for our customers who are running Deepgram in their environments. It also works in live transcription. And this is actually fairly rare in the speech world. There aren't that many under the hood algorithms that let you run diarization live as a call is ongoing, which is kind of funny because, you know, as humans, if I stop talking and Todd starts speaking, you know that instantly, right? You know the difference between, hey, I heard a change in voice, and you know, that's actually what our algorithm is doing under the hood. Is let's listen for that change in voice that lets us identify that. So Alexa, I think we can move on one more time here. So, you know, overall, what Deepgram saw in the market and what we've seen in the opportunity with CallTrackingMetrics is that there's a lot of room for ASR that's a true partner, right? We don't see ourselves as just the vendor, you know, let's sign the contract and, hey, Todd, you know, good luck over the next year until it's contract time again, right? We're really interested in understanding the data, understanding the problems, I remember one of the stories we worked on pretty early on was with redaction. You guys wanted to offer some more fine-tuned redaction, particularly around PCI, and so we talked about your needs. Do you have any comments on that one, Todd?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So that's such an important aspect of understanding what's in the conversation. So, many customers, they want to have calls recorded, but they want to make sure that the sensitive parts of those recordings and even in the transcriptions are not included, right? And so having that ability to tailor the redaction to specifically sensitive parts of a conversation really enables a lot more businesses to adapt transcriptions and recordings, because there's a lot of value in it, but there's a risk too, right? You don't want sensitive information leaking out into your call data, right? And so being able to reliably redact that information is a huge value add for customers. Yeah. And you guys made that happen, so that was great.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the kinds of things that we love. That's actually one of the things that I do every day is let's really deeply understand the use case and find where maybe we need to add features, maybe we need to do something to help you understand the speech better, so that then you can provide the business insights that your customers are looking for as they're trying to capture the entire omnichannel experience.
Yeah, if I could just add to that just quickly, so the way I see it is, we're able to take from our customers input into what they need and translate that into requirements to excellent vendors and partners, right? And basically build a platform that is combining the best of the best into one unified platform. So sort of the aggregated, best of breed platform. And Deepgram has really shined in that regard. So we're very excited to be able to offer transcriptions at such a high level from Deepgram.
Thank you, Todd and Jacob. This brings us to our live Q&A. So we had several questions come in during the presentation. One of our first questions is, I work for a company in New York and we've tested the transcription feature in CallTrackingMetrics for voicemails from clients. As you can guess, we have many people who call us where English isn't their first language and the transcriptions struggle to keep up. Any idea when the technology will catch up with the diversity of our callers?
I would want to ask maybe just a quick follow-up there, if possible, to kind of understand when you did those tests, Amanda, or from the person who asked the question, and just that way I could make sure I know that it was actually done on Deepgram or done on a previous vendor. October 2020. I think it was probably on Deepgram then. So I'll let the Deepgram team take it away. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. There's definitely room to grow for any transcription vendor with diverse accents in English, also other languages, that type of thing. The problem is tricky in that they're in audio already. Well, I should say this a different way. The way that models are trained is the models learn by example, and they have to have a lot of good examples in order to learn a specific language or learn a specific accent, that type of thing. And the easiest way to do that is to just get down the fairway English and build a model, okay? And many companies do this, and the tricky thing then is to spread out and then identify those accents and label the data, and sometimes also like do a little bit of translation there about like what was meant in the sentence and things like that. It's a really tricky part, and actually this is part of what is handled at Deepgram. Like we don't just provide a scalable API in order to transcribe. Like the way that you build models is we label data internally at Deepgram, and we get examples, these challenging examples, and then we retrain the model with those examples, and then we host that model, and then so we're constantly updating the models. Usually the general models are updated monthly, and we're finding that challenging data, labeling it, and including it in the model so that it can learn over time. So yeah, there is a difference when you have a challenging accent, or when you have like really low quality recording, lots of background noise, that type of thing. Us humans are still better in that situation compared to a machine, but all the models that we build just have to get more examples, and then they'll be able to do better in those areas as well. And that's something like we're very actively working on, and in general, the whole speech community is working on.
Right on. And Scott, I know maybe we had mentioned that there was, some advancements happening with respect to sort of learning over time with the sort of automatic kind of learning happening. And, so I might, mention to Amanda that, hey, over time, that transcription may actually start to just get better automatically. For sure, with sort of the monthly cadence of updates, it's worth trying again, not giving up on it, because it does improve over time. And that's, I think, part of what makes it really good.
Yeah, it's very rapid progress. It isn't like in a decade this will be good. It's like, many accents, you go from not very good to like, wow, this is actually, it's better than I can understand, and then
Right.
but yeah, it's a process though to get there. You can't unfortunately can't cover everything right away. Nobody can, even the biggest transcription vendors can't do it. But yeah, it's a big focus, and progress happens rapidly.
Thank you, Scott. The next question is, for keyword spotting, how many keywords can you flag? Is it in the order of tens of words / sentences, or more like hundreds or thousands?
Yeah, so I can speak from the Deepgram side, and maybe Todd can tell you about the CTM platform. But for us, it's orders of 1,000, so around 1,000. We limit it at 1,000, and the reason for that usually is like, are you actually able to keep track of them? Or maybe you should be doing a different call or something if it's literally 1,000, or maybe you should be looking at a custom model, or a trained model that already has those words in it, and then we can focus on like some other 100 or something, because it would be even better if they just showed up in the transcription rather than you having to like sort of conjure them up and like reweight them or something like that. So yeah, but at least from the Deepgram side, it's order of 1,000. But yeah, Todd, what do you guys support in the CTM platform?
Great question. So mostly on our side, I mean, so we'd have the same hard limits that you mentioned, given that, those would be the limits. But on our side, mostly it would be a limit in terms of UI and usability then, with respect to how much data can you input into a user interface, right? So I would also sort of stress that, the use case for keyword spotting is really to be able to react to concepts that are mentioned in a conversation. So you might want to be able to classify a concept with a handful of words that happened, given what an agent said, and then what a customer calling in said, or you called said, and that's really, probably a smaller subset of words, maybe 50, maybe 100, is sort of in the realm of reasonable, and useful, right? I think to Scott's point, like if you start getting into 1,000, it's like, that's almost like you're wanting to transcribe maybe the whole document with just those 1,000 words, right? So not necessarily is meaningful, but understanding what you're asking, might be missing something. But in terms of full language scope, it's far more than 1,000 words that the transcribers can pull back. It's that these would be specific words that you want to know whether or not they were spoken, so we can take action on those words. So.
Thank you. The next question is, Google and other solutions say that they are using AI in their voice transcriptions. What is the difference between them and CallTrackingMetrics and Deepgram?
Yeah, so I can speak on the transcription side at Deepgram. Yeah, so there's, you can have a broad definition of AI. A lot of times when people are thinking about this now, it's like, are you using the latest and greatest? Are you using end-to-end deep learning? Is your product based on that? And So specifically to address Google, there are some things that they build are like that they build that are. So like your wake word detector, when you say, okay, Google, and it recognizes that is an end-to-end deep learning model that's running on device that's doing that. However, when you're doing large vocabulary continuous speech recognition, they use the old model. Actually, they do have deep learning in a portion of it. So I mentioned this, the stack of having a denoising step, and then phoneme, acoustic model, and then having a lattice of words predicted after that, and then finally a text language model in that final step. That's still how they do it, but they combine the first two into one single deep learning model, but then the rest is still traditional. So it still uses up a lot of memory, still is slow, still has a lot of the same limitations as the old way to do speech recognition. It's just a little, it's somewhat better on the phoneme generation side. So yeah, unfortunately, there's no like obvious definition of like what using AI really means. There's a continuum. You can use it in a few spots, but if you're thinking about like totally orienting in that, we don't build a product unless it learns by example, and doesn't follow those more traditional ways of thinking about it. It's only this sort of learn by example, scalable, accelerated version. Then that's not what they do. It's not what Amazon does. It's not what IBM does. It's not what Nuance does, et cetera. They're using traditional speech recognition systems.
And just to add on to that, I mean, from experience here, using these different platforms, you can really tell the difference when it's a platform that's implemented like Deepgram. It's a level better than the other platforms. I mean, from cost and from just quality all around. So yeah, and then what is, from CallTrackingMetrics standpoint, what we're doing is we're making it accessible without having to do anything other than turn it on, right? And then we're incorporating it into the product that allows you to have access to that recording in the context of the call, in the context of the contact of the person, right? And we're providing you with the user interface, right, to interact with all that data, right? And so it requires all these different pieces to come together to I think solve transcriptions and voice analysis in a way that is usable to the end user, right? I guess if you're curious, sort of transcriptions and what I think Scott is saying, if you ever like go on the internet and shop for an NVIDIA graphics card or something, they're incredibly expensive up front. So it's not as accessible as I wish it would be, but companies like Deepgram have made that so that it is so accessible that you can just and then all the focus on the attention to detail of curating those models, right? Everyone talks about, I guess, the algorithms for transcriptions are, it's there, right? It's open mostly, right? There's lots of papers about it, right? But being able to have the labor to build those really, really accurate models that model the data in the way you need it, that's and then having the sort of the processes in place, right, to make sure that you're cultivating new data so that you can innovate and iterate on those models like in a month-to-month cadence. That's revolutionary. I assure you, Google's not doing it that fast. Yeah. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. Maybe I said too much.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone who submitted questions today. Very briefly before we wrap up, we're going to talk about some next steps. So for those who want to get started right away, there's 2 things you can do. You can reach out to CallTrackingMetrics and request a personalized demo. Or if you're interested, you can get started with Deepgram by requesting a free API key for testing transcription with up to 20 hours a month free. And then as a next step, we just invite you to leverage and explore these resources to learn how you can meet your customers wherever they are by using one unified strategy and leveraging voice transcription at scale. As a reminder, we'll follow up with the webinar recording as well as these resources linked here. And this concludes our webinar. Thank you to everyone who joined us today, and thank you to our speakers. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you joining.
Bye, everybody.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.